Is this thing on?
Are you ready, Matt?
You're listening to Box Office Bingers
with Matt Diaz and Ernesto Santos.
Good evening, folks. We have a wonderful evening's entertainment lined up for you.
We know each other. He's a friend from work.
Box Office Bingers.
And the only way that I know how to do it is to find you a bloody good devil.
He's my friend. I don't have friends. I got family.
I can do this all day.
You know, if you put your mind to it, you can accomplish anything.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Box Office Bingers. Ernesto, we have a great episode lined up. Not only are we talking about one of our favorite things, which is the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but we also have a first-time guest on the show. So Ernesto, tell our lovely listeners, what movie are we reviewing and what movie we are reviewing it with?
I love that intro, Pat, by the way.
Thank
We are reviewing Thunderbolts, and we have Emily Harless. Thank you for coming on. First-time guest. Very excited to have you on. So we have Thunderbolts, starring Florence Pugh, Sebastian Stan, David Harbour, Wyatt Russell, John Kamen, Louis Pullman, Julie Louis-Dreyfus, and Geraldine Viswanathan. Directed by Jake Schreier. Written by Eric Pearson and Joanna Kahlo. So thanks so much for coming on. We got a lot to talk about. I'm kind of excited for this review.
So am I. It's been a long time since I talked about a Marvel movie.
And I feel like this one was a good one.
Go ahead.
I was just saying, I feel like this is a good one to finally to have that conversation on.
Are you a big Marvel fan, Emily, or this is like you kind of on and off on the MCU?
So I, with the Infinity Saga, was very much into it. Watched it like from when the first Iron Man came out with my dad back in 2008 versus and kept up with it the entire time up through Endgame. And then I think after Endgame, I started to fall off a little bit with all the TV shows and stuff like that. It was just such like an overload of information that and there was a lot going on. I was in college at the time, so it was just a lot happening. So it's like I kept up with a little bit, and then I think it was really after like She-Hulk and like Loki season 2 that I was just like very sporadically watching things until the past couple of weeks.
By a couple of weeks, or you just been binging all of Marvel this last couple of weeks?
Oh, you went on the full binge. Okay.
That's I mean, from Endgame to now, that's a lot of content that Marvel has put out, for better or for worse. You know, that's up for debate on whether or not you like everything that Marvel put out these last few years.
I have
since
some hot
Endgame.
takes for sure.
I'm curious what those hot takes are.
What was the movies or shows that you've watched in this last couple of weeks?
Well, in these last couple of weeks, I feel like the shows I was mostly caught up on because I'd seen all of Loki, all of What If, all of Moon Knight, She-Hulk, Hawkeye, all that. These last couple of weeks, I finally watched Ms. Marvel, and then that movie as well. I still haven't seen Captain America: Brave New World, but it was also spoiled for me online. So.
Yeah.
I mean, you watched the trailer; it was spoiled for you, to be honest with you.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's like I already kind of know what's going on with that one, but I'll watch it eventually. So I feel like there's a lot of stuff that I missed in between, but like obviously nothing that was super vital as far as Thunderbolts goes. So I was just like, oh, I'll watch it afterward.
And what are your hot? So have you been keeping up with the movies? So like Multiverse of Madness, Thor: Love and Thunder, the Marvels that you just watched. So you got a couple hot takes. Since this whole episode is gonna be Marvel filled, so might as well just hear some of them. Since how is actually, let me phrase the question this way: how is your post Endgame Marvel review so far, outside of Thunderbolts? We'll get to that in a second. But like, how do you feel about the MCU post Endgame?
That's a good question.
See, I want to give it like a 3 out of 5 stars. Like, I feel like it's been okay. Like, I appreciated the goal of putting a lot of content out. I appreciated trying to service your fans. Did not appreciate that I felt like there was a lack in quality. I felt like the first saga was so in depth, had really good establishment of characters versus like now I feel like a lot of the movie was rushed. For instance, like Multiverse of Madness, I was so excited to go see that one because I love Doctor Strange. I love Scarlet Witch. Scarlet Witch is probably one of my favorite Marvel characters.
Yeah.
But I felt like the whole movie was just very rushed. And so it was like hard for me to like get into it and fully enjoy it. Eternals, one of my hot takes is, like, I actually really liked that movie. I don't know what it necessarily was that, like, made me like that one so much, but I actually really liked Eternals. Um, The Marvels was okay. Meh. Thor: Love and Thunder, mm.
I mean, you
It
could
was
be
funny.
honest. Yeah,
It
it
was
was funny.
funny.
Yeah.
It was cute. That's all I that's some of the that's the nicest part I have to say about the movie, I feel like.
I like the ending of the movie when we find out he has a kid and it's named and her
Yes.
name is Love, but other than that, I mean, the whole movie served and a lot of these movies post Endgame doesn't feel like they kind of what was great about the Infinity Saga was that we felt like we were building towards something. A lot of these movies
Right,
felt like they had a purpose and stuff like that. And now after Endgame, it's hard to determine like they were trying to work something out. Obviously, Kang was a factor, and then
right.
that didn't go over very well at all for them. That mainly for the Jonathan Majors of it all. But I'm very curious of what that would have come to as we were like inching toward what have been Avengers Kang Dynasty. Uh,
Mhm,
if we had a plan since Quantumania, if we would have had a string of good movies, but
mhm.
it doesn't seem like we were getting that anyway. So
No, and it's unfortunate because I do feel like I was so enthralled in the story of Kang and where that was going to go, and it's very unfortunate that Jonathan Majors was just a horrible person and kinda threw that
Yeah.
off the rails, but I will say, though, that this movie, The Thunderbolts, did kind of put me in a little bit more confidence, I guess, in, like, where it's gonna go, and I feel like the trajectory could get better from here,
Mhm.
hopefully, so we'll see.
yeah, and there's a lot going even before even talking about the movie. There was a lot happening behind the scenes
Mhm,
with Thunderbolts. I know that Ernesto and I we've talked about in nauseum about having the Marvel's restructure. This
mm,
is Marvel said that after around 2023, which was a rough year for Marvel between the shows and the movies. The only good thing to come out of Marvel that year was probably Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3.
Yeah.
mhm,
And then after that, between Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania and the Marvels and Secret Invasion were all flops, and people are like, "Marvel's dead." And then there's this retreat that Marvel has every year that they, kind of talk about the years to come, and that one apparently was a big one because they need to do this full restructure
mhm,
on what their future was going to look like. And then I remember reading an article saying that the Thunderbolts was the first movie to be a product of that. So, like, I think Captain America: Brave New World was already shot, so they had to go through reshoots to try to salvage what that movie was going to be. They also had Deadpool and Wolverine at that time was already finished, and so that was kind of living on its own thing. And I guess they lucked out that actually was really funny and really good to some people. And then now going into Thunderbolts, they weren't even filming at that time, so they were able to structure it the way that they wanted to fit the bigger MCU, and it seems like it paid off for them, whatever their new restructure going into it. Uh, and is also going to the writing. We had Eric Pearson, who is responsible for writing a lot of Marvel films like Thor Ragnarok, Black Widow. Those mainly the two. He's also responsible for writing Godzilla versus Kong and Transformers One. And even then, he had a first pass on the movie, and then after that, they went over to Joanna Carlo, who did episodes of The Bear, Beef, Hacks, and BoJack Horseman, and she ended up polishing it to where they wanted based on the new director. So like it's interesting to see like kind of moving forward of how that kind of came to be of like the Thunderbolts is now the product of what Marvel is shooting toward moving forward. And it seems like this is in a path in the right direction, to say the least.
yeah,
Uh,
no,
but
I agree.
but Emily, we'll start with you. Let's talk about the Thunderbolts. This is going to be diving into our spoiler review of the Thunderbolts and everything with Marvel moving forward. So we'll start with you. What were your thoughts on the film?
Yeah, so again, I felt like this was the first time in a while that I could actually get into a Marvel film. I love Florence Pugh's character, so I love seeing her kind of take more of a center stage role in this movie as far as like also taking over a team. I also love Bucky Barnes, and I wish I would have gotten to see him a little bit more in this movie because I do feel like he could be a good leader. And as you, I mean, I'm sure seen that poster where it's like the shadows of the previous Avengers,
Mm.
Yeah.
with these new ones, and they had like Bucky as the Iron Man, which that's a little for later. Like I don't really, I feel like Yelena felt more Iron Man like to me in this movie, but
Mhm.
regardless,
Mm.
um, I do like the idea of getting together this like kind of group of anti-heroes and being able to see like how they're evolving and trying to make this new team. Um However, obviously as we see in one of the post-credit scenes, I'm a little worried about what this is going to mean for the new team because there's another one being built apparently. So it's like it feels like it's setting up almost like a Civil War Part 2 situation, which is going to be exciting. But as far as the actual movie itself, I think it was also a very good analysis of almost like mental health because they got to see a lot of their past regrets and choices that they made that they are struggling to live with. And obviously, the big villain in the movie, the Void, one of the, in my opinions, one of the scariest villains, I feel like, because it's not only throwing you into those deep, dark paths of yourself, but it was also just like, it reminded me of the Snap a little bit because obviously people were kind of just like disappearing. But it was just like even worse in my opinion than the Snap because it was just like literally falling into a black void. And I was like, if I was in New York streets and this thing was coming toward me, I don't know what I would do. I would just like fall over. I would just be like, all right, this is my time.
Take me out.
But no, I mean, like overall, like I think the movie, like you said, is a step in the right direction. I do appreciate the take that it had on mental health and also just like moving forward, how it's going to set up further issues with the Void because I'm sure this is not the end of us seeing him. I mean, they even kind of said it in the post credit scene that he can't be the Sentry without also having that in the background. So I'm not super caught up on the comics. So I, at this point, like anything after Infinity Saga, I don't really know what happens in the comics. So for me, it's going to be kind of interesting to see where the story goes.
Ernesto, what about you?
This was like this movie was very refreshing because like I wasn't worried, but I think like in the back of my mind I was like, all right, let's see if we can give it a chance. But I was pleasantly surprised. There was like it's the movie just has such a darker tone. I mean, right from the jump when you get in the vault and you have that fight scene between them all, and then Ghost just appears out of nowhere and puts a bullet in Taskmaster's head. And like that's it. Like no other battle. That's it. Like you're done. Like this is it. I know. I think. I mean, I think they did that just to kind of like set the tone. And Emily, I think you said it right. Like the movie's central theme is that focus on mental health. To me, I really enjoyed that. And it kind of even plays to the character of Sentry and the Void himself because it's that battle within yourself. And I think a lot of people can see themselves in the Void because like you want to try to do good things, but your greatest enemy is that dark part of yourself. And like this is a physical manifestation of what that looks like, of what like many people deal with internally. So I was able to connect with the Sentry as a character. Like it actually caused me to go back and to do some deep dives. And the comics are have that same vibe. There's the comic Sentry versus the Void where everybody forgets who Bob Reynolds is and they slowly start to remember and then they remember and that's what causes the Void to start to come back is everybody starting to remember and that comic is like the head to head of him battling himself, very reminiscent of that scene at the end, the pinnacle scene at the end where Bob and the Void are fighting each other and it's like what it he tells him God, I wrote it down. Just like they're going through the shame rooms fighting each other and then he tells him that he's nothing and like that that darkness fighting with yourself is I don't know, it just really resonated and to me it just pulled me into the story more. Like I actually got to see the movie twice and I found myself enjoying it more the second time around than I did the first time around. I was able to pick on a lot of different things. I kind of liked us getting this backstory on Valentina when she touches Bob and we get to see her backstory. We see that she watched her dad get killed in front of her and then you kind of understand, well, this is why she's so power driven and like there was this one line where you kind of understand her quest for power when she's like, what's righteousness without power? It's just an opinion. And I was like, oh, like that totally makes sense to her character. But yeah, I mean, I absolutely loved it. I like the Red Guardian as this like comic relief because it was very lightly sprinkled in. They didn't come very heavy handed with it. I felt like it was just enough to kind of like to keep some levity within the film because of all these dark themes were dealing with. Um, Another scene that really resonated with me is after their initial fight when Sentry just goes ham on all of them, like literally doesn't even break a sweat and just destroys all of them. And Elena's talking to them about, we're all, you think of yourself as a failure, and then you're dealt with this massive failure, and then she tells them that they're all failures, and then she has this out with Red Guardian about him not being there after dealing with Black Widow's death. I just thought Florence Pugh's performance portraying that, like she really carried this movie, and I think in a very positive way. Like it's to the movie's benefit. I thought it was just overall incredible. Matt,
Yeah, I was actually really surprised with how much I enjoyed this movie. I think to your point, we were all going to Thunderbolts and like, I don't know about this one. Even when even when it was announced,
yeah,
we're like, and we're doing the Thunderbolts, and it's going to feature all of these B not B list, but like all these side characters that never really had their own movie. We're just kind of give them their own movie now, and you're
yeah,
like, yeah, I guess, but there's like nothing else we could have done like with any of other superheroes. Like other characters are kind of cool to give them their own movie, but sure, we can give it to these people, I guess. There's very little hopes going into this one. It's felt like a filler movie, just like maybe something that people might enjoy. I wasn't even really considering this movie as something that would be a bigger part in the MCU. Kind of very similar to like Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, where all the Guardians movie were kind of isolated in their own universe, but they were kind of part of a bigger one. And even Deadpool Wolverine, again, same deals. Like they weren't really the movies weren't designed to push the MCU forward. They're just trying to make a good movie in and of itself. And then this movie, out of any one of them, you would think that Captain America: Brave New World would have been the one to push the MCU forward because it feels like that's what it was supposed to do. That
yeah.
all these other Captain America movies were designed to kind of push the MCU forward, as well as telling this cool Captain America story. Uh, but surprisingly, no. The movie we all been waiting for was apparently the Thunderbolts. We had no idea, which I think that made it seem so much more rewarding
Yeah.
when you're watching the movie to feel like, oh, this is not only is this really funny, it's a really funny movie, but within the laughs, you have these deep themes of depression, mental health, like loneliness. A lot of these characters just feel so alone, and in some ways, you understand that. Even before this movie came out, you understood Yelena feeling loneliness throughout, especially with the passing of her sister. Kind of the things were somewhat explored in Hawkeye season 2 with her and kind of grieving the loss of her sister, and the Hawkeye doing the same thing at that in that season, and kind of seeing how things pick up here, and all these characters, at least some of them anyway, are kind of working for Valentina, and it just you can just see like in the beginning of the movie. I think it was pretty done really well to kind of kick us off and like just another random Tuesday, I guess, just here killing people. She was like just giving us this inner monologue throughout her day, and you can tell she was bored and like, almost just like she coulda jumped off the building if she wanted to and just kept going.
Which she did.
There was a parachute system, she was fine.
Which she did. She did
But
jump off the building.
say it again?
I said she did jump off the building.
Yeah, she did, but it was intentional.
Yes.
She did that on purpose. Um, but yeah, I think that was such a really interesting way to start a movie with a character pretty much at its lowest.
Mhm.
uh, point. And then we had this really cool hallway fight scene of her kind of just taking down all those people, and it was like an overhead one shot, and she's just kind of kicking ass throughout the hallway. And then we get a little bit of the start of the story taking place. We see Valentina trying to, I guess, hide from the government. I think she's the director of the CIA, but obviously she's doing nefarious things. I forgot the name of the organization that she's trying
O-
to hide.
Ox.
Uh,
I
Something
think it was yeah, Ox.
Ox, yeah. And so obviously she's trying to hide all that stuff. But yeah, I think showing starting with Florence Pugh and kind of having her be our main focal point, and then slowly kind of bringing all these other characters into the mix. I think that was a great way to kind of show that what she's going through, and then eventually look, kind of learning through everybody else what they're kind of going through. And I think when we get into the void and the shame rooms, we see that more with Yelena. Kind of wish we saw that with all the characters, kind of what
Mhm.
their
Hmm.
darkest points were, and then see how they can kind of overcome that in a way. We didn't really see that with the exception of Yelena. And well, I guess we understand that with Bucky because we've seen a lot of stuff that he's done in the past
Well,
from
yeah,
other
we
movies.
we didn't see Red Guardian, we didn't see Bucky, and we didn't see Ghost. We got to see U.S. Agent and
Mm,
yeah, Elena and Valentina.
and
I feel like I'm missing one.
Valentina, yeah.
Am I missing one?
No, I mean, everybody else that got voided toward the end of the movie, we didn't see theirs either.
But something I actually thought was really refreshing is that this movie, you can fully enjoy this movie without the knowledge of anything else. Like you can come to this, you can kind of
Yep.
pick it up like a comic book. And this can be your entry point and go, oh, well, I want to see what happened with Red Guardian and Yelena. And then you can go back and watch Black Widow. Like like it doesn't take anything away from the movie if you don't watch anything else, which I think is really refreshing given where we are and like how we were talking about how many projects that they've put out like that's homework for you to have to go back and watch every piece of content that they've built up to this point to like know and enjoy it. That makes sense.
But even part of it, wouldn't you have to? I mean, all these characters came from other films, so you would have to at least. You could go into this movie blind if you wanted to, but it's still predicated off of, especially with
Well, of
Bucky,
course it is. Yeah.
years worth of
Yeah.
films.
But I think that's the beauty of how comic books work. Like, yes, it is pulling, you get a deeper understanding. You have the deeper understanding if you have the knowledge, but it doesn't fully take away. You can still understand the story that they're trying to tell without the prior knowledge. But obviously, if you have the prior knowledge, it gives you a deeper understanding. Because now
Yeah.
you watch it, you get a brief understanding of who U.S. Agent is and the things that he went with that was explored in Falcon and the Winter Soldier without having to go through like a full exposition of why he is the way that he is.
Mhm. It was very brief.
But it was enough.
Of
I felt like it was enough. It was enough to make you
yeah.
understand who he was.
Yeah, but if people don't wanna go back and watch, like, the entire plethora of what was put out, I do think that probably the best ones to watch are, like you said, Falcon and the Winter Soldier and probably, um, Black Widow.
Yeah.
Those are probably, like, the most essential ones just to get that background information,
Yeah.
but I do agree with what you said too. Like, I do think they did a good job of kind of establishing the characters, but an interesting point that you guys made was, in the Infinity Saga, we had all of these characters having those individual movies to
Hmm.
build up to the first Avengers.
Hmm.
And so that is something that I didn't really think about because I was like, oh, it kind of just jumps into it. I wish, like, it would have been nice to have some individual movies with some of these people to learn a little bit more about their background character, like what made them who they are. Or, like you said, even if we were able to see like a compilation of their past regrets, just to get that little bit extra context with those people that we didn't get in establishing movies.
Hmm.
Um, but that's really like that's my probably my biggest critique is I just wish I had a little bit more information about some of these characters. But besides that, like again, I do feel like I did a good job of bringing everyone together and making it feel like a cohesive team with an agenda moving forward.
Yeah, I do agree with that, and kinda just piggybacking of what you said, I mean, technically, the US agent had a lot of screen time
Yeah.
in Falcon and Winter Soldier. I mean, arguably even more than anybody with the exception of Bucky, because he had a lot
Mhm.
of screen time, a lot of movies, but with US agent, he was in 6 episodes, roughly an hour long. Those That's 6 hours of content. He wasn't in there for the entire movie, but or the entire series in every frame, but, I mean, he probably clocked in just as about as enough screen time as, say, Red Guardian did
Mm.
in Black Widow.
Yeah.
And then Yelena, she also had parts of the Hawkeye series as well as Black Widow. Yeah, as well as Black Widow. So, yeah, I mean, I guess I think honestly, the only character that I really knew nothing about uh, was really Ghost.
Yeah.
Because like I didn't go back and rewatch Ant Man and the Wasp because I
Neither
feel
do
like I
I.
didn't need to just for her character. I kind of saw a recap video of kind of giving us me an overview just in case I forgot anything. But and I went back and rewatched Black Widow because to your point, there was 3 characters in this poster that came from that movie. So I figured at least I'd get that push off, and it seemed like that Yelena was the main lead of this movie. So that one seemed like a good one to rewatch. But really with Ghost, is like I really wish they gave her a little bit more time because even toward the end of this movie, I don't know anything about her, nor do I don't care about this
Yeah.
character. I feel like we really didn't spend a lot of time with her other than her being a villain, now an anti-hero working for Valentina, and then also maybe wanting to be a hero. Like we didn't get a lot of conversations with her like making me want to care like I did with say Bucky or Yelena.
I feel like that's kind of what the original Natasha Romanoff felt to me in the first kind of series, is like she
Mhm.
was just like, "Oh, like, hey, there's this person who's been in a movie in the past." And
Mhm.
then obviously we get more context later on, which I'm hoping we get with Ghost because I do think she's a very interesting character.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
like the little bit of the backstory that we did have about her, it's like it's heartbreaking, and I would love to know more about her, but I hope it doesn't take as long to get that context as it did with Black Widow.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah, because with Black Widow, you're right. Like we were getting a lot of different stories with Black Widows throughout
Hmm.
movies. I mean, she was basically just a side character in Iron Man 2. We got a little bit of backstory in Avengers. And then they gave her a love story in Age of Ultron. She was basically a sidekick for Captain America Winter Soldier.
Hmm.
I don't she was in Civil War. Yeah, she was in Captain America Civil War, and I think after that we saw her in Infinity War, I think was the last time we saw her in a movie, and then eventually she got her own movie, which should have happened years before it happened, but that's not the conversation we're having today. Um, and then honestly, I think just in one movie, they gave a Yelena for something for us to care about. Because she's kind of like the surrogate Black Widow, and I feel like within between Black Widow and Hawkeye season 2, I cared more about Yelena as a character somehow than I ever did with Black Widow. Even when she died in Avengers Endgame, a lot of people didn't feel that gut punch. She's like, "Oh, this is just a character that's been around for so long," but they never really gave her her due, unfortunately. Or whereas Yelena, I feel like they did it right, and I care for her. I care for what happens for her in this particular movie, because they did a really good job of kind of fleshing out her character in Black Widow and Hawkeye season 2. And then with Red Guardian, I mean, he's always is and still is like just the comic relief, and man, is he really funny in this movie.
He is.
Especially with his limo service, which I, you're oh, okay. I'm gonna put a pause in this conversation right here because I don't believe at all that Valentina hired a limo service and did not know that Red Guardian limo service was the father of Yelena. I just don't buy it. I like 'cause she was revealing all these secrets in the back seas, like, oh yeah, like we have to burn all this stuff, we have to kill all these people, whatever. And Red Guardian just happened to be driving the limo that she's riding. I don't know. I you could say that it's a plant, but I don't know. Maybe she was just oblivious of what she was doing, or do you think she's
No,
that smart that she knew exactly what she was doing?
I do think I somewhat think it was a plant, because, like, think about the end of the movie where she was, like, pretending she was on the phone and trying to run away from them, and she comes out into this, like, press conference, which obviously I know her original plan was for Sentry to be, like, the big guy, but
Right.
it's like so, like, I don't necessarily know, like, that was her original plan at the end of the movie, but, like, I don't know, part of me feels like she knew what was up. Like, she seems like a smart lady. She
Yeah.
can't be that dumb.
Yeah, she seems very opportunistic. So I noticed it in a that like that's that city scene at the end, which is it's funny because she calls them the New Avengers and they reference the
Mhm.
attack on New York, and then we're here back at New York by Avengers Tower with another city attack, and she calls them the New Avengers. So I thought that's a funny little connection that they did there. But like when they're fighting, there's this moment where they cut back to her after they all come together and lift that big piece of like I guess street or cement, whatever, a building, and they push it over together and they look at her and she has this look on her face. To me, that was the moment where she's like, "Oh, this is my team." And then I think that's when she does her redirect from Sentry.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, I think that was it seemed pretty clear. Like you can see the wheels turning.
Yeah,
And she was trying to catch them off guard, which I think she did at the end of the day. I think they were preparing,
yeah,
like they were kind of chasing her, like, "Oh, I'm gonna get you now," and then, "Ha press." Um, which, but yeah, and so then, but yeah, but do you think that having an open conversation in the back of her limo Do you think she knew that the Red Guardian limo services and Red Guardian was the father of Yelena?
But she wasn't in his limo. It was like a regular black limo. So it's almost like that he was like contracted through another company. That's how
Oh.
I saw it because he was in a regular suit. It wasn't the Red Guardian limo service limo. Right? It wasn't it
Right.
just like a regular black limo?
I thought
Well, you
the
saw
Red
it twice.
Guardian limo service and the like first part of the movie was black and just had the logo on the side, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe because it
Isn't
was
it
night,
red?
so it might have been the red one.
I thought it was red. I thought it was red.
Yeah, I figured he had the one limo that can only go so fast, apparently.
It only goes
Yeah, I
Partially
55.
thought
bulletproof.
yeah, partially bulletproof. Yeah, I thought I didn't realize he had a fleet or he was contracted to drive other one. Like, they made a big point of showing that one and
Mhm.
giving it a lot of screen time, so I figured that was the only one that he had. So I don't know. I just feel like it was really weird. And all of a sudden, I do think that it came with a really good payoff that we'll talk about in a second when he's literally driving down the desert and Yelena's like, "Oh my god, don't no, I don't want any of this." And it just followed with a really funny bit. But before that, I do want to talk about the vault fight scene, and it was kind of really clever of how that was constructed. Obviously, Valentina wanted all of her like past to kind of like no longer exist and kind of bury it so they can't find anything. And I think it was really clever of how things were orchestrated because Yelena was hired to basically kill Ghost.
Mhm.
Ghost was hired to kill Taskmaster. Taskmaster was hired to kill John Walker, and John Walker was hired to kill Yelena.
Yes.
So everyone, it was kind of like this big circle square of like we got to kill or triangle, but there's four people, so probably a square. So you have to kill all these people to like, and then if they don't die, then they're just gonna get incinerated because they're trapped into this vault. So it's kind of like a double security layer. I think for me, that part just kind of quickly ended. I thought it was really cool. There's also I noted in this breakdown video that the knife I guess Yelena threw this knife, and it was a complete one shot, and it was really cool. Like Yelena threw the knife that toward
Mhm.
Ghost, and Ghost like I guess went through the knife, caught it, and then threw it at Taskmaster. Taskmaster deflected it, then it caught by John, and then John used that same knife to try to kill Yelena.
Mhm.
So it was a really cool like scene. I thought that was really well orchestrated. Um, but I feel like that whole thing resolved very quickly when they just stopped trying to kill each other and realized that they were being set up. Maybe they're smarter than I think they are, but I feel like that could have lasted a little bit longer of them kind of being mean to each other, even though they're kind of sassy. But I feel like they got really quickly. Is like, wait a minute, we should probably stop. Like, am I the only one?
No, I agree with that. That was the only part that I felt like, ooh, I feel like we got through this very quickly. Like it felt
Yeah.
rushed, kind of like some of the other stuff that's happening in this current phase.
Hmm.
And what's interesting is that I read online that there was an earlier cut of the movie where the entire movie took place in the vault. It's like, well, I'm glad that they didn't do that because that would
That
Yeah.
would
have
have been boring.
yeah, that would have been boring.
Right? It would have been because then eventually that they can't stop and start fighting
Yeah.
like the entire movie.
I mean, there you could spend some time there because especially with Bob and if he then you have to then the movie's like he's going through each person's like shame room. I mean, I don't know what that how the end
Mhm.
result of how they get rid of him because he can like look at them and just destroy them. So I guess they like it needed to evolve outside of that room. I'm just kind of glad that that happened.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I also was reading that there was a draft that like Sentry wasn't in the movie, and I can't really picture this movie without him and the voice.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I also like that this movie served as an introduction for him, but it
Mm,
didn't feel like a forced introduction. It felt it
right.
just it flowed very naturally within the story.
Hmm.
Yeah, I do feel like in some characters, like to your point, it is forced. We're like, we want you to be this person, and then moving forward, you have to be this person.
Yeah.
Where it definitely felt like we're gonna like to your point, we're gonna introduce him, and then we really don't know how we're gonna continue with him, but he's kind of around. He's just Bob.
He's Bob.
He's
Yeah.
Bob.
Bob.
What about Taskmaster? I have my own gripes with it. I'm gonna get on a soapbox in a second with Taskmaster, but I want to hear your thoughts first on how do you feel about introducing and quickly eliminating and never bringing back and really mentioning that character again.
I'm so disappointed. Like, I feel like Taskmaster could have been such a cool like villain from and like even in the Black Widow movie, I felt like Taskmaster was so nerfed.
Yeah.
And to now to just like bring her in and immediately kill her, I was like, what was the point? Like,
I couldn't agree more. Ernesto, what were your thoughts on
So I think because a lot of the sentiment following Black Widow and leading into is that they didn't really that nobody really likes this Taskmaster. They want to see like a true rendition of Taskmaster. So I wonder if, especially with Secret Wars coming out and Doomsday, like what if this is just a setup to bring Taskmaster from another universe later? So,
that? I don't know, man.
but I do think obviously this was like an underused cameo, but I think it was put there for that purpose, like just to like really set the standard that like this is not the same Marvel.
I
I
mean,
feel like they could, but they also like it's kind of their fault that the people didn't like the original Taskmaster character because they didn't flesh it out well enough
Oh, I
in the
agree.
first
Oh,
place.
I agree with you 100%. I agree with you
Yeah.
100%. It could have been
but
it could
isn't
have
it?
been so much better, but then like once it's out, they're like, well, now they're stuck with this. But comic books do this a lot. They use these comic book events and they use it as like all right, let's do like a cleanup and redirect of like
Hmm.
kill certain characters, bring certain characters back, bring them over. I mean, Secret Wars is how they brought Miles Morales from the Ultimates universe into the 616 universe. So like I get it. So like it sucks, but this doesn't mean that Taskmaster is gone completely.
I don't disagree with you there, but I feel like they have really no reason to bring this character back at all, given where we're going into bigger and more utilized characters moving forward. I could be wrong by saying that, but wasn't this movie kind of in a way can be a redemption moment? We've seen Marvel throughout the years redeem characters all the time by bringing them back and giving them more story. I think one that comes to mind is Trevor Slattery from Iron Man 3. We thought he was the Mandarin, and then he wasn't. It was a complete joke. And then they brought him back in Shang-Chi, and they kind of redeemed that character.
Yeah.
Um, and so, like, can't you? This was your platform to do that. You put her in all of the posters. Like, it's all over the marketing that
She's right there.
she is part of the
In the corner.
Thunderbolts. So you would think that you would utilize that to your advantage. And I was actually looking forward to seeing what they were gonna do with this character because she was such underutilized in Black Widow. So and then there were already speculations online that because she wasn't prominent in the trailers, that she could have died. And I was perfectly fine if that was the case, but I didn't expect that death to
So
happen.
quick, yeah.
It barely she had one line, and she said, "I'm not here for you." And then this point blank, they just shot her in the head,
Yeah.
gave it a beat to show that she was shot in the head, and then that's it. And I don't know, just leaving Black Widow and, like, her being kind of mind controlled for many years, and then now she's able to kinda live the life that she wants, or at least get an update on what she's been doing this entire time. Yeah, I was reading an article from Eric Pearson, like who I said in before that excuse me, he had an earlier pass on the script. So when he saw the movie, he was actually also quite surprised that Taskmaster uh kind of met an early demise because in his version of Thunderbolt, she made it toward the end of the movie,
Mm,
and there were a lot of stories that were kind of surrounded her as well. And he kind of gave his 2 cents on why they might have eliminated that character. And he doesn't know exactly why, but in his opinion, he said by the end of the movie, he speculates that the reason why she got a cut because her parts were slowing down the film. She feels like that some of her story beats were very similar to Bob, as well as could have slowed down some of the other characters' progress. And then as far as her and then also pulling some focus away from the other team. And then as far as killing her so early, he believes that they just did it out of shock value.
yeah,
Which I guess
Mhm.
if that was the case, then
I agree. I can
that
totally agree with that. I don't
so
know. Would you have liked a Taskmaster subplot sprinkled throughout, or do you feel like it would have dragged? Because the movie's already over 2 hours, so you're talking. If you sprinkle that in, you're pushing 220, almost 2.5, maybe.
don't think it would have hurt. I mean,
Yeah. I also don't feel like it really needs to push that much. Like you could have just kept Taskmaster around. Like I
Like it,
don't feel
Yeah,
like we had to. I mean, it's not like we went into the backstories of any of the other Thunderbolts,
that's
like we
true.
just said
true.
with the whole walking through the torture room thing.
Because it
So
almost could have been better if the Void would have killed, like still kill her, but then in the end,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
Void like really kills her, and then it kind of showed.
yeah,
And then you could have shown like a little bit more brutality from Sentry
yeah.
versus the Void.
Or you
Um,
want to show like some shock, some tragedy. Have Taskmaster go through those rooms and choose, like almost be overtaken by her past.
mm,
mm,
That would have
yeah.
been like that would have made it more devastating, and I feel like for some people would have made people a little bit more interested in Taskmaster and what Taskmaster would have been through.
you
That's
could.
actually a really good idea because that in your scenario, depression
Mhm.
kind of took over and something that she couldn't come back from, even though it looks like everyone came back from the void, but maybe in her case, she was down so deep she couldn't get herself.
Exactly.
Even to build upon that, then we even compile that with Yelena, and then you have shared trauma from being
Mm,
a Black Widow between Taskmaster and Yelena.
Yeah, and then it also makes Yelena seem more powerful because it's like, oh well, Yelena got through it,
right.
Taskmaster couldn't.
That's true. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. That's true.
I feel like there could have been some really cool,
Yeah,
not only action scenes with Taskmaster,
true.
um, but also I think they could have fit in somewhere with some story beats. Apparently, she was a lot of, according to Eric Pearson in the interview, that there was a lot of back and forth between her and Ghost. So obviously that was all gone. And so obviously that never made it through the filming stage because this was all on paper. But it's just interesting to see like this version of it. And then after they knew that she was going like to die very early, we still kept her in the marketing. We still kept her around. You
Mhm.
still like look at every poster. I mean, in this poster right here, she's kind of like her half a face is in that poster. The very back corner is like we're really showcased. Like, yeah, she's kind of in this movie, but not really. But okay, don't look too far because
Yeah,
don't
like if you're gonna kill her off, it would have just been cool to not have her in the poster, have her be a
Yeah.
quick cameo, and then kill her.
right. Yes. And also to that point, like, would it have been better just not include her at all? Like, as far as what we're concerned as fans, she's off doing her own thing. After Black Widow, we never have to mention her again. And I think people would have been fine with that. I mean, a lot of one note villains pop in now, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So, like, why couldn't Taskmaster just be another person that's like, she's just there instead of just point blank killing her? And I don't think it served much to the story except for this conversation.
Yeah, yeah, I think unless the plan is to bring back another version of Taskmaster later. Otherwise, why
Yeah,
go through the exposition?
yeah,
I guess. I guess. I mean, I think that's to me that was my biggest gripe with this movie was how they dealt with Taskmaster.
I think that's
And kind
fair.
of just overall the wasted opportunity between Black Widow and this movie that she could have had because there were a lot of opportunities for that character to grow because I do feel like in some ways the Thunderbolts is a redemption movie. So why couldn't she also be redeemed or
hmm,
just die in the process of trying to be redeemed?
Mm, that's a good
So
point.
yeah.
That's a good point.
yeah. I'm
Uh,
gonna argue I would almost have rather have had Taskmaster than Ghost.
oh, interesting.
Well,
I don't
it makes
know
sense. There's more emotional weight between Taskmaster and Yelena. There's more to play off
exactly.
of there in the scenes. Like I could see that. And then Taskmaster, I mean, Ghost is cool too, but Taskmaster is just a really cool villain. Like just
Yeah.
Exactly.
how she can mimic anybody, and she's just as skilled a fighter as anybody else. Like there's a lot there.
Yeah,
I
and I
guess
like I said, I think Ghost is a really cool character, and I liked having them both. But it was like if we were only going to be able to have one or the other, I almost would have preferred to see
Taskmaster.
Taskmaster go farther.
and honestly, Ghost is kind of the only person here that has a different skill set than everybody else. Like Taskmaster, Bucky, Yelena, Red Guardian, um, US Agent, they all just they're good at fighting and they're strong. So like three of them have super soldier serum. They're kind of all the same.
Yeah,
So like you had three super soldiers and two widows, and then you had Ghost. So as far as dynamics are concerned, Ghost gives us something a little bit different than just punching something really
And maybe
hard.
and maybe that was part of it. Like Ghost is a great plot
yeah,
device. That's how they got out of the only reason they got out of that room is because of Ghost. So I
True.
guess if you had to choose who was gonna live or die between Ghost or Taskmaster, who would have got them out is
that's
Ghost.
true.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think. Yeah, I don't think we really cared if Taskmaster lived or died at the end of the day, but it's just the way that they killed her off.
No, I agree.
It
I
took me
agree
off
with you.
guard.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree with you 100%.
And then we kind of move forward a little bit in the movie after that, and and I think there was a lot of really good comedic moments in here. I think them kind of, in a way, kind of like symbolizing the asterisk when they were all uh
Mm,
going up the
Oh, I didn't even
uh
think about that. Yeah, yeah, when they were going up that elevator shaft.
yeah, the elevator shaft. Yeah, I think there's a lot of moments with the movie allowed for them to kind of bond, but
Mhm.
also be sassy one another, and I think the little elevator shaft was part of that. Like they're just kind of like you see that they need each other to get out of the situation, but they don't want to be with each other at all.
Yeah,
And I
it's
think they played well with each other in that scene and others in the movie as well.
that's their first to me, that was like their first indication that they were better together than they were
mhm,
separate. And even Yelena see it, where she Red Guardian note points it out to her when they're in the car, in the desert. He's like, that light, you have that light back in your eyes. Like having these people around makes you, he gives her that realization that having these
Yeah.
people around you makes you lighter, which is a
Uh,
sentiment that she shares with Sentry later on about carrying the burden of your depression. Like, you can't go through it
mhm.
alone. It's better for us to go through it together. We're not going to take it away, but we can help lighten the load.
yeah, and I think that was I mean, toward the end of the movie, there was a lot of like the void isn't gone. It's
No.
just suppressed. And I think that could be the same sentiment just shared with loneliness and depression and all of that. Like we none of us really who have it or experience it, we've all experienced it before. Like it doesn't really go away. We just were able to just manage it better than others. Or just manage it in a way that we can kind of continue with our lives, but it's still kind of hanging around. And even going for the end of the movie, I kind of like that the void is still around. The
Hmm.
void, darkness can still consume anybody. But if you learn to kind of keep it at bay and try to keep positive thoughts, then you can just move forward day at a time. And I that also causes an interesting story beats later into the MCU. Of this could he's a ticking time bomb
Hmm.
essentially. It could never come back. It could come back to try maybe to his benefit, but it doesn't seem like anything beneficial is to bring the void back into play. I feel like in some cases that Sentry can be used against, say, the Avengers, if Doctor Doom gets his hand.
Well, I mean, he's like one of the most powerful superheroes in the MCU, between him and Scarlet Witch, and like they're up there. I mean, you see how powerful he was. I mean, he
Yeah,
has like what, like kind of like telekinesis. He can melt shit with his eyes. He can just like literally do whatever he wants. He can fly. Like he's invincible. Like he's like Superman without the kryptonite.
yeah.
Yeah.
But what's interesting about that is that you have, I think, Captain Marvel ran into this issue where she's like this all powerful being, and they have no weaknesses. So if there's nothing that's bringing this character down, why do we care? If you know, like I feel like she showed no weaknesses in her two movies, and she's a little bit smug in some ways. And so, like when you're watching these movies, like what are the stakes if she has nothing to lose, essentially,
Mhm.
or like nothing can really phase her? But whereas the Void and Sentry comes into play, which is better, is like you do have this powerful being. The Void is consuming him, and that's what makes it even worse.
Yeah.
But that is you have these like trying to these positive thoughts are the ones that are keeping it at bay. So like he has limitations to this all powerful being if he wanted to, because in order for him to fly and do all those things, he needs to be the void. As of now,
But I think
that could change.
that's what's so interesting about him, is that he is this
Yes.
all powerful being, but the only thing that's holding him back is his own limitations, and that he is
Mhm.
him and the void is what's holding him back. So who knows? Like, this is him dealing with that. Imagine if he didn't have that, how much stronger he could be.
I mean, he said it like because Valentina was like, "Oh, you're stronger than the original Avengers, which had a god." And he was like, "Oh, so I'm like stronger than a god. I'm
Yeah,
more than a god." You know?
Yeah, and obviously, I mean, he turned on her very quickly
yeah.
in that scene. It's like you're gonna follow my orders. Like, why am I gonna do that? You
Why?
just called me a god. The god doesn't listen to people, especially not you. Um, but then also them or her trying to kill her. Well, I guess he didn't. She didn't kill him. It was her
Cold.
assistant.
Yeah.
Yeah, her assistant tried to kill her, and then clearly that just pissed him off even more. It made things way worse than
Yeah.
anything. That spiraled the third act of the movie. Um, but before that, I do want to talk about some of the comedic moments a little bit, and definitely the desert scene. Going back to Red Guardian, coming back to save the day. I think that whole limo scene in the desert was for me the best part of the just seeing them all in the limo, you having them like, "Oh, you're the Thunderbolts? Like your soccer team's like, no, no, we're not." Like, yes, the Thunderbolts. That's what you're called. That's your team name. And there's like, what are you talking about? He's just rambling right now, trying to evade all these people. And then what follows is like a badass Bucky moment that we're all used to
Oh
seeing
yeah.
in these movies. And it was so good. Like there was these moments that you kind of want to cheer him on because it was just so cool doing that. And then just to add even better was that he still destroyed the
Yeah.
limo.
I felt like it was
Them
a
cheering,
good.
and then they're like, "Oh no."
Yeah.
Oh shit. But I felt like that scene was a good, like, not him as Bucky, but him coming back as the Winter Soldier. Like, he's got the
Yeah,
arm. He like takes that, just the way he takes out that Humvee. Like, it was great.
Yeah.
He even has it.
But
That
to
gun is
that
the same
point,
one from that gun is the same one from Winter Soldier. It's that same
it
like device gun thing he used in Winter Soldier movie.
yeah. To that point though, it's like recalling the Winter Soldier, but I don't think it's him returning to the Winter Soldier because the Winter Soldier was this, heartless,
Oh yeah, yeah,
brainless
yeah.
kind of a thing. So it's like it's interesting to see, like you said, bringing back those Winter Soldier characteristics, but with these Bucky characteristics where he is fully himself and within his own mind.
That's yeah,
yeah.
yeah. That's right.
And I feel like this is the first time we actually get to see. I mean, I guess we saw a little bit in Falcon and Winter Soldier, but I feel like here we get to see Bucky kind of be his own without kind of being tied to the Captain America label that we typically see him associated with.
Hmm.
Because really, Infinity War and Endgame, I really don't really count Endgame, but with Infinity War, he was just everyone was there just to fight Thanos and his goons. And then in Winter Soldier, he was trying to be, Cap was trying to heal him, and then in Captain America: Civil War, Cap was trying to defend him. And
Hmm.
so, and then we have him getting healed, and then Infinity War and Endgame happened. So I feel like we really didn't get to know who Bucky was until Falcon and Winter Soldier. They kind of gave him the time there, and then all of a sudden he started. Now he's a politician. I feel like that came out of nowhere.
Right.
They I know you said you didn't see Captain America: Brave New World, but they kind of teased it a little bit in that movie, and then they kind of focused it more on into Thunderbolts. And I was like, I don't know, did that serve any purpose to his character? Because you can see that he's trying to do things by the books, but he doesn't want to, and then he just does his own thing, and now he's part of the Thunderbolts or the new Avengers. But like, why even add that political element to it?
I
I feel like they tried to do that to make it make more sense as to like why he was going after Valentina. But at the same time, like I feel like they could have just had that other senator guy like almost hire Bucky
yeah.
Hmm.
as someone to go after him. I don't feel like he needed to be a politician.
I think he was on this path where, like, well, if I can't be Captain America, but I still want to do things the right way, so let me go into politics. And then, like, you started talking about it, made me think about it. There's a scene where before the first hearing, where he's stopped by all the media, and he has like this. It's like a
Yeah,
really awkward interaction where he's like just kind of like stumbling through the conversation, not really like giving any answer. But then, like, on the flip side of that, you have the desert scene where he comes in like a badass, just so confident, like taking everybody out, like knowing exactly what to do. So it's like it's almost like he was like maybe his arc was that he's like living this lie. Like this is not
Yeah.
really what he wants to do. Even when he's talking to the girl, she's like, "Oh, you're trying to get me to give information." She's like, "Well, can't you track my phone?" He's like, "Well, I don't do that anymore." But it's like, so it's like almost like he's like he wants to be this outlaw anti-hero type person, but he wants to do right. It almost like he wants to do right by Steve Rogers by trying to be this all-American
Yeah.
golden boy, like doing the right thing at the right times. But then like this maybe this movie is a realization that that's not who he's meant to be. This is who he's meant to be, like this kind of anti-hero
Yeah.
person.
And part of me too makes me wonder like kind of referencing back to the original Captain America, where he was the one that was like leading the charge to go be in the army and
Hmm.
do all this. And so it's like, was he like trying to recall back to himself because that was the last time that he was really himself? And like he was like, okay, yeah, like I was super patriotic. Let me go back to that. And then he was just like, I'm not that person anymore. Like I am changed, and that's okay, you know.
Yeah, and I almost feel like that now we kind of see him in a way kind of this lone wolf. We've seen him work with a team but never be part of one. It was always like Buck and it's kind of Buck, Falcon, and Winter Soldier. That's kind of been like the
Hmm.
trio that they've kind of established throughout these movies. And so now with Cap gone and now with now Sam Wilson being the new Captain America and barely shown in Brave New World, it definitely seemed like this is an interesting direction for him to go to now being part of a team that's kind of outside of his element. So it's interesting to see moving forward. And even that's kind of showcasing the credit scene. Like, is he considered the captain, the leader of this team, or is it Yelena? Because he's like trying to give advice, but like he's almost like he's not confident to be the leader, but he's definitely the most qualified to be. So I don't know if how that plays out, and we'll talk about the post credit scene a little bit later. But yeah, I don't know where he stands on it, but overall, he's the most tenured person that we are most familiar with. So it's kind of cool to see moving forward to see how he does do as a being part of a team and the dynamic that that could have because I don't really feel like we got a lot of that in this movie. This movie was definitely more focused on Yolanda.
It is interesting because you do kind of end with this point where you're not really sure who it is between the both of them, but you're not sure who the leader of the new Avengers is.
Yeah. And then
That's
we
the,
go ahead.
sorry. That's the thing I was gonna say with like the new Avengers poster that had the silhouettes of the old Avengers underneath it. And like that's I don't feel like Bucky is the Iron Man of this team. I feel like if anyone's the Iron Man of this team, it's Yelena. And obviously, in the poster, for sentimentality's sake, they had Yelena's silhouette be her sister.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But I don't like if we're actually going based off of who the role I think that these characters are filling. I don't think that's the case. I feel like Yelena is the Iron Man. I do feel like to an extent Bucky is the Captain America of this team. So it's like they are working together. They are kind of the two head honchos,
Mhm.
Mm.
but and they both like need each other to propel the universe forward, I believe. But I don't think I don't know. Bucky doesn't like I love the character. I've been a Bucky fan since day one. I just don't feel like he is the leader of this team.
Yeah, I mean, if I guess if we're looking at it in the comparing the Avengers state, yeah, I think Bucky's more of a Captain America. Yelena, I guess, will be Iron Man. Red Guardian kind of fits this Hulk vibe, I guess, in a way.
Yeah.
I see
He's like a mix of
John.
Hulk and Thor.
Yeah, I feel like I guess if we're comparing that, then Century would be your Thor.
Hmm.
John Walker would kind of be your Hawkeye, and then Ghost would kind of be your Black Widow in that sense. Um, that's kind of how I see it, but I'm kind of in agreement with you. I think they can kind of and can we again we kind of saw in the post credit scene they're kind of co-leading this team a little bit.
Hmm.
But yeah, even but before that we had them kind of confront Valentina as they kind of Bucky kind of captures them a little bit. He kind of gives this inspirational speech. He's like I've been where you're at, but I forgot exactly what he said, but he's like, I've been where you're at, and we have to work together. Like, do you want to? He's like, do you want to be heroes? Like, yes. He's like, all right, I guess we got to do this together. And then Red Guardian's like, yes, we're a team now.
The
And then
Thunderbolts.
yeah, and then you get this really funny interaction when they're all in the van, and again, these great character moments where I think really sold the movie for me. Where he's like, "So what what's super soldier serum did you get?" He's like, "The Hydra. Oh, Hydra. Oh, that's nice. That's
Fancy.
nice. So I got that's cool. The good stuff, apparently."
I got
And then
this.
you have Yelena making fun of uh, um, John
Walker.
Walker's
Yeah.
hat or helmet.
Yeah,
He's
And
like,
the gun. And the gun.
yeah,
and
yeah.
the
Oh, it's kind of long.
Yeah. I guess it's long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you like the helmet, the hat? Yeah. Yeah, I like your hat. She kept calling it a hat, and he kept calling it a
yeah,
helmet.
yeah.
He's like, you could keep your little pretty helmet, your little hat. It's
Yeah.
like, yeah, yeah.
I think it's also pretty good that they kinda just barged in with the truck and they just started beating people up,
Yeah.
and
Yes.
then and then Valentina's like, "Hey, I'm upstairs. What the hell are you guys doing?"
Yeah.
I
Like,
left the
I
door
just
we
open.
put the drywall in.
yeah.
Yes.
No, I did. I laughed out loud at that one. I was just like, plan? What's the plan? Run to the
Yeah.
building."
Yeah, run into the building. We'll figure it out. And then,
Yeah.
like, they're all just doing their thing, kind of just like this wild animal. They're like, "What are you doing? What? Stop this! I'm upstairs. Use the elevator. God, we're not doing this right now." Then we talked about already that we had this really cool scene of Sentry kind of coming out in this classic comic book look.
Yes.
And kind of like at this point, the void's pretty much almost consumed him at this point of kind of being the realization of like, yeah, he doesn't want to kill anybody, which I find interesting. Like he doesn't want to follow the orders of Valentina because he does still at that moment kind of care for these people who were kind of following him, getting him out of the situation, especially Elena, who was the only person that actually felt like they cared for him
Yeah.
when they were trying to get out of the vault. And we kind of see a little bit like some compassion from Elena in those scenes earlier in the movie as well. And then I feel like in this moment when Century was full void and people were just getting voided, which was a crazy visual effect, by the way.
It's wild to watch.
Just seeing all these people running, and then you just saw like it's almost like this smearing of black
Yeah.
Yeah.
shadows all across the wall, like, and it's just it's staying there, which is even more haunting. And I think to that effect, which I feel like what followed was a cheesy moment, but then it kind of worked out at the end where you have all of our anti-heroes becoming heroes and they're one by one saving people from the debris that's falling from the building. And it's like, all right, I get it. Oh, we're saving children, we're doing this. But then as they're all lifting this big rock up and they toss it over and everyone's cheering and they're like, "Yay, whoever you guys are, thanks for saving this square of a building. Don't forget about everyone else that's out there right now. But you saved a block of people.
Yeah.
Congratulations." And then like more debris kind of coming down. You know exactly where I'm going. More debris is coming down. Red
I know
Cardigan
where you're going.
saves this little girl. And to I think I verbally said, "Oh shit." Uh it's just this girl
What
just
a turn.
poof. You
I
saved her. You
never
did it.
felt my stomach drop so fast from a villain. I was just like, what the hell?
they just they just voided that little girl. She's gone.
You're like, "Damn, man, this guy means business." I was more shocked on that than I ever did with Taskmaster. Like I felt for the little girl more than I felt with Taskmaster's death. Right?
But what a
It's like
shot! But I think to your point, what a shocking moment. Like we go from like this very upbeat moment of them together, and then you get like all of a sudden this girl, oh, you're gonna be safe, little girl. Boom! It just
yeah.
like mood change. Back to the task at hand.
It was
But
all
also
it served as both a shock factor and a comedic relief because I'm
yeah,
pretty sure everybody in the theater was
Like,
laughing.
oh shit, that
yeah.
girl, look, he didn't kill that little girl.
But I think to your point, I think there were like even like inspirational music might have been playing in the background
Hundred
too.
percent was
Like
100%.
this heroic nature is like, "Yes, you saved the day." Do.
Yeah,
And you're like, "Oh my
this is it.
god."
We were in the middle of the heroes montage, and it was abruptly
Yeah.
interrupted.
It's almost like if they were
Arguably one of the best points of the movie.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it definitely if you're like kind of not paying attention, you were now.
yeah.
That's what it felt like at that moment. You're like if you're like on your phone all of a sudden, doom, you're like, "Whoa, wait a minute, hold up." Well, this is this just got real. Um And then obviously Elena makes the heroic moment of going into the void. Everyone else just does the same, eventually kind of also going into the void. And we just see her just trying going through layers of her own trauma, as well as eventually meeting up with Bob and kind of bringing down his deepest, darkest as well. And I find a lot of people are kind of making fun of the moment, but I think it worked well for the movie that you defeated this all powerful being that has no weaknesses, and you saved the day with a hug. It's a team hug. But I think that says a lot about the movie, to be honest with you. I think that was somewhat endearing about that scene was that, yeah, you have this basically anti Superman level person and like this all powerful being, and it takes as little as just showing some compassion and just a hug to kind of bring this huge entity down, and keep him at bay. To me, I really resonated a lot with that scene. I didn't like go, it's full blown crying, but I think if one person said they shed a tear, I believe you because it was really heartwarming.
But I think to your point, I think that serves better than like a MacGuffin, like some
Yes.
rando device that doesn't mean shit. Than that something that a human being can connect with that they can take with them. So I actually I agree with you. Like when you in retrospect, it seems kind of cheesy, but I think I think it 100% works for the movie.
I mean, let's be honest. Like, I love a superhero movie. All of them have elements of cheese to them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Like,
of
let's.
course.
So it's like, whatever. Like, let this be cheesy.
Yeah. And to your point though, is like that if you wanted to we just a few months ago, we had that cheesiness with Captain America Brave New World.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
it ended in the way that you expect it to end. That you have this big monster rummaging through the city, and they find a way to bring him down. And like in any of these Marvel movies, to your point, Ernesto, there's this MacGuffin. There's this thing that once you hit him with it, you're able to capture it. Whatever, it stops everything, and everything is fine, and the world is safe.
Yeah.
Uh, this gave it some relatability. It didn't need this big action third act
Hmm.
to to kind of win the audiences over. Like at this moment, people weren't looking for action; they were just looking for great storytelling, and I think it really served its purpose with, and also great character moments in here as well.
Yeah. It just seems like it was a great grounded story within like this superhero world, and it just like it didn't, and it also didn't rely on like cameos or like a lot of setting up for the future of the Marvel universe. It was a very self-contained narrative, which to me that's always the way to go. Like it seems like the Jake Schreier film within the excuse me, within the Marvel universe, very similar to like James Gunn films. Like it's a James Gunn film within the Marvel universe, not a Guardians 3 movie. That makes sense.
Yeah,
Yeah. I do think it's interesting though, because I do, like you say, it's pretty self-contained, but I do think it does honestly a lot for setting up the future because I don't think, again, like I don't think the void, we know the void's not gone, but I
Correct.
don't think this is the last that we're seeing of the devastation that the void is going to cause.
Yeah.
Um, like I feel like that is going to become much bigger of a character, especially when we get, like you said, Doctor Doom or any of the other characters that can come in who can maybe play off of that and manipulate it a little bit.
Well, I think when I say that, I mean like there's not like in the movie there's not like these implanted things that are like clear setups for other things that have nothing to do with the movie.
Yeah. Other than the post-credit scene.
Well, yeah, but see,
right.
but that's what that place is for. But even then, it still included it was included in the Thunderbolts because you actually get more information on them. You get information on their suits, like you kind of get a feel for where they are setting up in the Watchtower. So it actually, to me, it kind of did both. Like it did set up, it kind of rounded out Thunderbolts, but it also set up Avengers, the next
And that's
Avengers film.
honestly what these post-credit scenes should be doing.
Yeah, the first
Yeah.
one
Uh,
was a comedic callback with the Wheaties box, which I thought was well placed. And in the
yes.
end I felt like it rounded out Thunderbolts, but also set up Avengers. Like it didn't encroach on the film. It's just like an added bonus. Like it was just a very well directed post credit scene, which was directed by the Russo brothers, which gives me hope for Avengers Doomsday.
Yeah, that's nice. I will
Um,
say it was weird to see the Red Guardian, by the way, without a beard in the post-credit scenes.
Yeah, he was looking more like Hopper than Red Guardian.
I was
yeah.
like, what is this, a Hopper? Like,
But I do kind of agree with kind of both of what you guys are saying. It definitely feels like its own movie. Like you can definitely watch it without needing the bigger. Like obviously, if you've seen the other movies and TV shows, you get
Yeah.
more context of where these characters are coming from. We don't necessarily need to watch those movies and kind of dissect it frame by frame in
Mhm.
order for you to understand and appreciate the Thunderbolts. In addition to that, though, it is. I think this movie did way better job of making the movie its own while pushing the MCU narrative forward.
Facts.
Because at the end of the day, these Thunderbolts, which we'll get to in a second, are now the new Avengers, which are like,
mhm.
whoa, what does that mean? And so like it felt natural to the story at hand, but the new Avengers is more for a push of in an interesting way, the push of what that could mean for the MCU rather than say like Guardians, where it felt very isolated. They didn't do a lot of pushing MCU forward. They were more concentrated on their own movie, which is still fine. But I think this movie was able to successfully do both. I feel like that we were getting to know these characters, and in a way, kind of felt like an Avengers movie.
Hmm.
Uh, this is a culmination of all these different characters from different movies and their different franchises coming together for this one particular movie that feels like it can stand on its own. In addition to at the end of Avengers movie, pushing over to the next threat or the next whatever is happening, and this movie did a way better job than I can say any other movie has done in the last 3 years. Like even like Thor: Love and Thunder, which felt very isolated in its own movie and did nothing to propel the MC. It
Correct.
just
Yeah, that
wanted to be its own weird, funny movie.
and that's why I think I don't. That's why I think a lot of audience members didn't like Thor: Love and Thunder as much, just because it's like, well, this just is here.
It's random.
Yeah,
Like, what's the point? But that's why I think that's why I liked Eternals and Shang-Chi so much, is because they did feel like their own thing. But
mhm,
again, I do feel like they are propelling the future as well. They almost feel like the original kind of establisher movies to me that we had
yep.
in the original
Hmm.
universe, which is why I enjoyed them so much. I don't feel like we need some of these like personally, I don't really like What If. I'm gonna just put that out there. The What
Oh,
If
you've seen
series, like
every episode?
I watched it because I wanted to make sure, but like I like that I wasn't gonna like miss anything important. But like I don't really like What If because I felt like it was just like a placeholder thing. Like I feel like a lot of some of their TV series are, which obviously will come to play in projects in the future, but I felt like a lot of them weren't needed at the time. Right now, they just kind of felt like they were stagnant. I think that's why so many people got put off of the Marvel Cinematic Universe for a while.
Yeah, I mean, and we don't even know what that means. Half these projects that they even came out with, what that means
Yeah.
for Doomsday, whether or not that means anything at all. Like,
Exactly.
should we be looking forward to Moon Knight or She Hulk or obviously like shows like WandaVision kind of paid off in Doctor Strange: The Multiverse of Madness, and we also thought that Multiverse of Madness would have been that tentpole movie to propel the MCU,
Could have
and
been. It
it
could have
didn't.
been. It could
It could have been.
100% could have been. It could have been a great MCU horror film.
Yeah,
I was severely disappointed in that movie.
Yeah.
yeah.
I will say, especially because I love Scarlet Witch so much as the character, and I don't think she's gone. Like I'm sure she's
She's not.
probably gonna
Yeah,
come
she's not
back.
she's not gone. There's no
She's
way.
not going anywhere.
No, but
She's
it's
too
so it'll
like
be interesting to see
overpowered.
how they bring her character back into the fold. But
Yeah,
it's just like I don't know. There's so many things that I feel like they could have been great movies. They could have been great projects to propel things forward. That the ball has just been dropped. So finally having one where it's just like I feel like I can see a future is reigniting my love with Marvel. It makes me want to actually stick with it for the future.
yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, the same could be said for Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, another movie that was
Oof.
supposed to be a tentpole movie, and then all of a sudden just dropped the ball again. And so, like, we had these three. Now we just talked about three movies that should have been the movie to help us. Like, this is the one that's going to let me get back into Marvel, and then it wasn't that. And so, again, I think to all of us to come to so surprised to be like, Thunderbolts was the movie to do that? Like, out of all the movies that came out in the last 5 years, I didn't think Thunderbolts was gonna be the movie. Be like, "You know what? I'm excited for Marvel now."
Yeah.
Rather than, like, some of the other ones that they had have already established characters, from previous films, and they couldn't get the job done. And I just feel like that's just Marvel maybe not knowing where they want the future to be. Like, maybe just too much was going on with the Disney Plus shows, and then everything was just kind of falling short to it, not having a clear narrative vision where it felt like the Infinity Saga. Um, but yeah, let's briefly just talk about some of the new Avengers title. To me personally, it it doesn't feel like they are the Avengers, in my opinion. Like when you compare what the Avengers was and what this is, like even with like when they ripped off and said we're the new Avengers, it's like Eh, I'm not buying.
Well, they're not the new Avengers. They're the new Avengers with a Z. Don't forget. Um, but I I feel like they are, but they aren't. I also I don't think they're trying to be the old
No,
Avengers.
that's fair.
Um, And to be fair, like I don't, they didn't really want to be in the first place. So Valentina kind of threw them into that role.
Hmm.
And so it's like they're trying to embrace it at this point, but I think they know damn well that that's not who they are. They're excited for it because they're like, we get to say that we're the Avengers. And obviously, as we see in the post credit scene, like they're a little disappointed that Sam Wilson is making his own kind of team, that he's trying to trademark the Avengers name and stuff like that. So I think like they're excited for the idea of being able to be their own team. But I do think that, like you said, like we were saying, like they don't really feel like the old Avengers, but they're not trying to be either.
So do you? I mean, as the movie kind of suggested with the asterisk, do you think all of this is just what's the word, placeholders of what this team actually is? Because the Thunderbolts was just a fun gag that was throughout the movie of her youth soccer team.
Right.
And then Valentina was the one that called, like you were saying, Valentina was the one that called the new Avengers. It's not like they were striving for it, and so now they're trying to competing with whatever Sam Wilson's doing with his team. So like it almost feels like that, like they're the new Avengers to the media, but they're not
Exactly.
actually the new Avengers. Ernesto, how do you feel like this kind of played out?
I mean, I thought it was fine because there's a comic line where Sentry joins the new Avengers. So I mean, I get it. It works. My thing was I just wish the rebranding wasn't so soon. I mean, I think Matt, we were
Yeah.
talking. It was Monday. I mean, it was literally Monday morning. They're still
Yeah.
collecting box office numbers, and they had already dropped new posters. They changed all the billboards. When you went on the app to look at the movie poster, it had already changed to the new Avengers poster. But I understand. It does seem quick, but I understand because it seemed like maybe they're trying to get a jump on social media, spoiling it for everybody, having them be the one that drops the initial info as opposed to it leaking on online.
Part of me also wonders if it was like a campaign to maybe try to get more interest in the film because they've been so
That's fair. Yeah.
meh the past few years, that they were like, maybe if we try to rebrand this as like an Avengers thing, people who were around for the original series and like that original series might have more interest in it.
Yeah, that's an interesting theory that
Yeah.
could be the case. I think all of us had watched the movie after this announcement. I know I watched it after that Monday, and Ernesto as well, and Emily said you just watched it. So like we already knew that the asterisk meant the new event. I think at the
Hmm.
end of the day, it didn't really spoil a huge part of the movie,
No.
but the fact that it was the literally the end of the film, like the almost like one of the like this is the new Avengers, like this is what the big push was. I think to me it could have been a big marketing push for Marvel to get a lot more eyes and a little bit more press on a movie that just came out. Another, give it another week of like this round of news. Like people like Sebastian Stain going around Hollywood, replacing posters with Thunderbolts to New Avengers. Like I think in a way it's clever marketing, but I think you could have given it a beat.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. I feel like it was really soon because now going into this movie, having already known this, it was a big contention for like a year what the asterisk meant. And then on Monday morning, Marvel's like, whether you've seen it or not, this is what it means. And I feel like it was just to get the media buzzing about this movie again. But it came to the people's like, I guess in Marvel's eyes, like if you really wanted to see it, you would have saw it opening weekend. Um, and that's fair, but that's not everyone's,
True.
not everyone has that luxury to get there.
Very true.
Yeah.
Um, and but yeah, I think it's just interesting how they're marketing. Ernesto, I sent you another image of how clever of their marketing is. I'm not did you there you
This
go.
one.
So they're kind of meshing these two movies together. This is the exact same
Oh, the
billboard within a
Lilo.
yeah, Lilo and Stitch. This is like a week of each like within the week. And I felt like these people who make these billboards are probably like, again, I gotta come to this building again. Uh but, like, it started off, like, with what it is on the top left of the Thunderbolts, the Wheaties poster, and then Monday morning, you saw them replacing it with the new Avengers. I think this was, like, not even 24, 48 hours. Then they put Stitch, just kinda crashing the poster and the Wheaties box, and then a couple days later, it completely engulfs the whole building and saying Lilo and Stitch comes out May 23rd. To me, I think that's clever marketing.
Yeah. I thought it
Uh
was pretty cool.
Yeah, I just it's interesting that like this is like the Disney branding of them also owning Marvel of like we're kind of like Stitch is also known for impeding other people's posters, other people's movies, and the cartoon. So the fact that he's doing it with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I think this is like a good marketing campaign for Disney. So I think it's just fun to kind of see that. But ultimately, I think they could have waited an extra day or two on revealing the new Avengers. But
Yeah. I mean, it does kind of sour the very end of the film because you already know that it's coming. And like if you had
yeah,
no inclination and you hit that moment in the film, it's a little bit more earned. I feel like you appreciate the moment a little bit more.
yeah, and even talking about literally right after that. Well, I think it was kind of funny that Yelena goes to Valentina and is like, "We own you now because
Yeah.
now you need us
Yep.
to propel your success."
Yeah.
But then in addition to that, literally right after that scene, we had a great montage of during the end credits of like all of these headlines kind of mocking the
Not my
the
Avengers.
new Avengers. Yeah, not my Avengers.
Mhm.
There was like the B Avengers as one of the headlines, and I was reading an article that Kevin Feige, this was his idea, and I think it's kind of genius when you think about it. And it says that he said that knew that skeptical audiences might not be on board with this new Avengers. So he recommended to critics montage leading into the mid-credit scene that would kind of in universe headlines questioning and mocking the new Avengers as also making fun of the idea of this team. So by the time the end credits is over, like Marvel did the work for you of
Mm,
making
Yeah.
fun of what this new Avengers is, and then we kind of just accept it. So in a way, I'm kind of okay with it. And kind of Emily, what you were saying earlier, that is this really new Avengers? The movie itself is questioning that. So will that be something that is being talked about more in Doomsday? When we see kind of Wilson building his own team, and what will that look like? Do you think there's going to be a story beat potentially in Doomsday of the two Avengers teams fighting each other?
It feels like there's a setup, an almost Civil War-esque setup, especially when
mm,
back to that poster again where they had the silhouettes of the old Avengers. Maybe this is why they put Bucky as the Iron Man of the silhouette, is because obviously Sam Wilson is this timeline's Captain America version. So it's like it does feel like they're kind of trying to set up almost a Civil War-esque fight for that. Obviously, they can't do the same thing as in Civil War because you don't want to just repeat your movie.
mm.
Yeah.
But it does. I think the difference in this one, though, is that I do feel like there might be more of like a merging of the two
Yeah.
teams
Mm,
rather than just like 6 and 6 going head to head.
See that's
yeah.
what that's
Because
what
I
I
don't even
think.
know if we.
I think it's gonna be
Go
more
ahead.
in. Oh, I was gonna say I think it's gonna be more infighting, and then when they're faced with Doctor Doom, they're gonna realize that their fight is irrelevant. That they're probably gonna be they're
Yeah, like
stronger
they're all the
together.
Avengers together.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
Yeah. Do you feel like we have time for that though? I mean, I don't know what this movie's gonna be about. We none of us do, but like I feel like when you have Avengers Doomsday, we're gonna take out 20 minutes of this movie for inter Avengers fighting, and then Doomsday just pops in and is like, okay, whatever we were doing doesn't matter. We gotta form together and move forward.
Well, that could be the initial setup before Doctor Doom makes his entrance. That could be leading into Doctor
yeah,
Doom. Because this is how this
Okay.
yeah.
movie ends. It ends. I mean, the post credit scene is them talking about Sam not being happy and them setting up his own team. So that could be how they pick up the next movie. I mean, it is something because that's the scene that the Russo brothers wrote as a post credit scene.
Very true. And then also a very funny scene with them having copyright issues on who owns the Avengers. And
Yes,
then Red Guardian comes in and was like, I found our problems. And he has all these logos on his jumpsuit, and then he just has
Yeah.
this Z.
Avengers with
Like,
a
why is
Z.
he in a racing suit?
Yeah, because he
Yeah.
sold. Didn't he? Because didn't he like sell the rights to the company, like almost like race car drivers,
Yeah.
right?
Yes. But it also
Yeah,
cracked me
pretty
up because
much.
I was like, wait, okay, Stranger Things, Gran Turismo, like what are we?
What are we doing? It's funny.
I thought it was a really funny scene. Also, you kind of see these really. They had a new Avengers A logo, very similar to the Avengers Tower,
Mhm.
which I find interesting. That now, after I don't know, it felt like 6 years of a payoff of like who owns the Avengers building, and then 6 years later you find out. I feel like that's too little, too late on that particular story. It's like wow, like I completely I stopped caring about who owns the Avengers building when you brought it up in Spider-Man: Far From Home, and then they kind of brought that back 6 years later. So thanks for informing us that. But I guess that's where the new Avengers are now having their base of operation. And then on like classic post-credit scene fashion, there's a threat that's coming in, and you see a ship coming into the universe, and it turns over, and you see the four on it, and it's like that's when post-credit scenes were. That's what they should be. There's not you don't finish watching Thor: Love and Thunder and see Brett Goldstein as Hercules, and we're like, what the fuck does that mean? I don't like, I don't know what that is. I don't know
It's
what
like
that means at all. It just here's a character. We don't come out of Multiverse of Madness and like there's Charlize Theron. I don't know why she's here, but she's gonna help Doctor Strange somehow. I guess that might pay off somehow. I don't know. And then at the end of She-Hulk is like, the Hulk has a son? Yeah, he's been over here this whole time. What does that mean? Don't know. Don't worry about it. That is not your problem right now. I feel like this end credit scene is what Marvel movies were doing this whole time, and it works best because that payoff is in 3 months.
yeah.
We know what that logo means. We know what that's coming into. Like that's what these end credit scenes are supposed to be. What were your thoughts on the end credit scene in general?
No, I agree with you. As like, I don't want an end credit scene to just be filler. The mid credit scene, sure, but the end credit scene. If I'm sitting my butt in that seat to sit through 10 minutes of credits,
Mhm.
it better be for a reason.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
um, and like obviously, to like again, like you said, it's something that's coming up. But even if it wasn't something that like we knew when the movie was going to come out or whatever, I do feel like even just showing like an iconic logo like that, something that makes people excited, that's all that they really need to do in
Mhm.
these post-credit scenes. Is like, what's something I can do that's going to make people excited? We don't really know what it's about. Maybe we don't even know what the movie when the movie is, but what's going to make people want to stick around?
Yep, and the Fantastic Four is a pretty good one to
Yeah.
stick around for.
Mhm. Mhm.
Ernesto, what were your thoughts on the end credits?
Well, I was just saying, like I said before, I thought it was great. I thought it was a great way to finish it, a great way to round out the Thunderbolts. We get a little bit of comedic with the whole with the suit, and then we're establishing that they're getting settled in the new Avengers Tower, and then we're immediately thrown into something that's incoming that's going to be setting up for Fantastic Four and Doomsday. So that means that Fantastic. So the kind of the way they're setting it up, so somehow Fantastic Four is going to be the bridge between Thunderbolts and Avengers Doomsday. So it'll probably end with them coming into the universe, like maybe that moment. And then there's some speculation online that that
To
ship is not the Fantastic Four because in the Fantastic Four trailer, it has the three prongs on the bottom, and then that ship has four.
Mhm.
So it like there's some speculation on what that ship actually is.
Gotcha. I would say though, like to what back to what we were talking about as far as like the teams, they're inter fighting. Could we maybe see some of that in Fantastic Four rather than in Doomsday, sort of a deal?
Oh,
Like
that would be
if
interesting.
yeah, like could he start establishing that team a little earlier, and
Ooh.
then maybe we don't have to spend as much time with it in the Avengers film.
Or a post
Yeah,
credit scene is
I'll be very
them.
curious of yeah, or a post credit scene. Yeah, I was thinking that. Let's say that.
Well, just the only reason I say that is because the whole film is predicated on them being in this alternate universe and having to deal with their Silver Surfer and their Galactus. Because then I think they've already stated
Right,
Hmm.
that they're
right.
that this Fantastic Four is that they're the only heroes in that universe. I also like that this Fantastic Four, like they've
Right.
already been established as Fantastic Four for a while. I mean, in the trailer, you see them in the Fantastic Car, and it kind of I wish this would not have been spoiled for me in the trailer, but then you find out that Miss Fantastic, the Invisible Woman, that she's pregnant. So that's already setting up. Like that means that they're well into the Fantastic Four timeline because then that means you're gonna get Valerie Richards
Yeah.
and what's his name, Franklin Richards. Which Franklin Richards is like an Omega level mutant. He's like one of the most powerful beings in the entire MCU universe. So and then excuse me, Valeria is like she's like a super genius, and she sets up like the Fantastic Foundation, and it's interesting to where they're placing them and where they're bringing them over because they've already that means that they're cutting out a lot of their like beginning lore, like all the beginning, all that shit in the beginning. They're just kind of like skipping over that and bringing them over there. They're already well established, and we're kind of like almost like the next phase of where they are as heroes. So I kind of I'm curious to where how that's gonna fold into the main MCU. Like they're gonna obviously cross over into the other universe, but then it's just I guess it's a matter of how. So
Yeah,
is the
I
movie a
think that
tragedy? Are we gonna watch their Earth get annihilated by Galactus?
it definitely feels like that is what could happen, especially what the trailers are alluding to. But I really hope that's in some ways it's somewhat of a misdirect on where that movie ends because it definitely seems like that Galactus is going to end their Earth. They're going to try to escape it, try to seek for help, and then go to another universe and try to get somebody else to help them out.
Yeah,
Like if that is actually the plot, then I really don't want to know that from the trailer. So I'm really hoping that something else is at play here that surprises me going into this movie. But as far as like just kind of getting right into the Fantastic Four, Marvel kind of needs to do that. They did the same thing with Spider-Man.
yeah,
Like we don't need to rehash his origin story, and we already had like 2 decent Fantastic Four movies and then a really bad one that already rehashed their origin stories. We don't need to do it again.
I agree.
So just getting right into it, and I do feel like that kind of like the vibe of it. They can, and then we've already seen them like in TV interviews and like sitting down in chairs, like talking to a host. They could easily do this in about 5 minutes. Like, oh hey, we have the Fantastic Four here. We're excited to have them on. Here's this backstory real quick of how they had got their powers, and then that's it. Like, and now we're moving on with the rest of the story. If they really wanted to showcase some sort of origin,
Yeah,
um, that's a 5 minutes, less than. Could be the opening credits, say no dialogue. Like it doesn't take much to say their story, and then they kind of just move on with their world. But what really excites me more about Fantastic Four is the world they're building. It looks really, really cool
yeah.
from the trailer. Like this
This like retro
retro 1950s
futuristic. Yeah,
futuristic look.
yeah.
Mhm.
Um but with that, I want to quickly talk about the box office as we typically do on the show. The Thunderbolts had a budget of $180 million, which is kind of average for a Marvel movie. The movie opened to $74.3 million. At the time of this recording, domestically has made 134.3 million. Internationally, has made 143.5 million. At the time, again, at the time of this recording, it has a worldwide gross of $277.9 million. Now, excuse me, doing some quick math here, we're looking at about, I don't know, a little over 400. 180 times 180 times 2.5. It needs to make 450 to break even. Uh,
Yeah,
it's
aftermarket.
going to take a while to get there. I'm not sure if we're going to get to 450 with
Maybe not.
Thunderbolts as far as making a profit.
They might get close to it. I mean, this weekend is going to be this coming weekend will probably be their last big push at the very top before we start getting into more summer releases.
Yeah, because after this week, we're starting getting to Memorial Day weekend where we have Mission Impossible and Lilo and Stitch, and then the rest is like Lilo and Stitch is already banking on making a bunch of money Memorial Day weekend.
Oh yeah.
So we'll see if they kind of get anywhere, any legs. Maybe the international market can give it some. But as far as making a profit, it'll be lucky if they can hit that $400 million mark by
Mm.
the end of it. I'm kind of looking over real quick on the Brave New World numbers to see how well they fared. We just found out the other day. So Emily, if you want to mark this on your calendar, end of May, sorry, is Brave New World's hitting Disney Plus. So if
Mhm.
you have that, you can watch it if you so choose to. I don't think anyone here is highly recommending it, but
Oh, I love these characters. I'm watching it when it
It's
drops.
a thing. It's a thing that you can do.
it's a thing you could do, yes.
Mhm.
So Captain America: Brave New World, it looks like it tapped out at about $415 million worldwide.
Mm.
So it's kind of sad to see that this movie
What did it do
will
opening
most
weekend?
likely get more money.
What did what did Cap
Right,
what did Cap do opening
say it
weekend?
again.
What did Cap do opening weekend?
88.
Oh, so it actually
88.
did better than this because this was 74. Interesting.
Yeah, it did better. It did better, which is understandable. I mean, Captain America's already a recognizable name, so people can go in for that. So that doesn't quite surprise me. It doesn't. It's not that much of a difference though.
No.
But obviously, a lot more people went to go see it. By the time, like right now, we're hitting the Disney Plus territory, so But I think what Thunderbolts has going for it is that the positive word of mouth.
Yeah.
A lot of people are enjoying this movie. A lot of people are either going back and rewatching it, um, or they're going back in the third week and watching it for the first time. There's not a lot of big movies that are happening now in Lilo and Stitch, so it could get a little burst into its third weekend, and who knows? It could make more. Hopefully, it does make more than Captain America: Brave New World.
I hope so.
But at the time, it doesn't seem like they're getting there. As we get, typically around the fall time, early fall, we start doing our summer blockbuster recap on the box office numbers. So I'm really curious, Ernesto, when we have that conversation, how those numbers will look at the end of the day.
I agree. Yeah.
But with that, Emily, we're going to start with you. Our final thoughts, your final thoughts on the movie, as well as your 5-star rating that we typically do on the show.
Ooh. So, final thoughts. Like we said, I think this is a great stepping stone for this new kind of trajectory for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's a great place to get things started and get things rolling, and hopefully just continue to improve from there. I'm excited to see where these characters go, how they evolve. I'm excited to see the Void return because, like I said, one of the scariest villains, in my opinion.
Mhm.
So, just overall theme of my final thoughts is just I'm excited for the future.
Yeah.
As far as stars, I would probably rate it 4.5 for
Mhm.
me. Like, I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. I want to watch it again. I probably will go watch it again. I mean, full like Endgame is a 5 out of 5, so if that gives you
Yeah.
a scale there, but yeah, I'm just again, I'm just excited for everything that's going to come out of this.
I'll ask you this: do you think this was the best movie since Avengers Endgame?
Team wise, yes. I
Okay.
think there have been some like I really enjoyed Shang-Chi. I enjoyed No Way Home, but it also felt very fan servicey to
Mhm.
me. So I think as far as actually establishing a team, this, in my opinion, is probably the best one since Endgame.
Wow. Okay. Ernesto,
Hmm.
your final thought.
Uh, I agree with everything Emily just said. Now, that was actually going to be one of my points. I think this is the best movie since Endgame. At first, my initial impression was best game since No Way Home, but No Way Home predicates itself that like you've kind of seen and know about all the other Spider-Mans and all the other Spider-Man villains. Like I feel like you have to know a lot more in order to really, really appreciate that. Whereas this movie, you can just appreciate it on its face. Like you can just watch this movie and you can get a full understanding of everything and like really appreciate it. So for that, and I think this is just a hopeful return to for Marvel, so that because I am really excited for Superman. Like it's that's one of my highly anticipated ones for this for the summer. But this at least gives me hope to enjoy Fantastic Four because before this movie, after Brave New World, I was not as hopeful as I was after watching this movie. So this gives me hope for what they can put out in the future that maybe Marvel is not fully out of the fight yet.
Hmm.
Oh, and as far
And
as
your 5-star rating.
my rating, I'm gonna agree. I think a 4.5.
Oh, interesting. You guys went a lot higher than I thought you guys were going to.
Were you
Actually,
gonna go a 4?
I was sitting at. I was gonna give it a 4. Yeah, I thought I was giving it a 4, but I can meet you guys at a 4.5. I have no reason not to give it a 4.5. I have my quirks about it, but especially with Taskmaster, was
Yeah,
like my biggest gripe about this movie. But in if that's my biggest gripe about the movie, then everything else about this movie was fantastic.
yeah.
I think for me the biggest thing was that it surprised me that this was a movie that wasn't it's what Marvel does best when it's done the right way, and what Marvel's movies used to be
Mhm.
was that we are going to give you a superhero movie as on the forefront, but what this movie's actually about is something else. And I love that that's what this movie was. This movie's about, dealing with mental health and ways to kind of overcome that and kind of surrounding yourself with people that will make you a better person or needing people to kind of get you out of loneliness and depression and like helping one another in a way that was not, like kind of differently shown from other Avengers movies. Like they all helped each other to fight this whatever villain that was there by working together. by their strengths and like using their power sets working for them to defeat the bad guy. In this case, they kind of did something similar to that, but they did it in a very unique way that we haven't seen before. Also bundling that with there was a lot of great comedic moments in here,
Mhm.
a lot of moments that just makes you reflect on your own life. To your point, Ernesto said this movie's very grounded in some of the story that they were telling, but it's kind of set in the superhero world. And then also it did what most Marvel movies haven't done since Endgame is push the narrative forward, not only with your own movies and your characters, but with the MCU at large, which I think a lot of us have been waiting for that push to the MCU
And doing it
that we kind of
naturally, like not it wasn't
yes.
forced. I think to me that was the key point is that it naturally pushed everything forward. Like it just you didn't feel like they were spoon feeding you shit.
Yeah, it actually to your point when they had, like, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, even though it was a great movie, but there were moments in that movie that where I felt like, "Oh, this feels like this didn't belong in this movie, and
Yeah.
you're just putting it in here just to service the bigger MCU," which we are now getting paid off in the sense of having, Valentina in Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, which I just remembered just
Hmm.
now, that she was in there pushing her own agenda. And then we had Ironheart that was in that movie with Ruby Williams that's now getting her own show that's coming out next month on Disney Plus. So like those were clear like add-ons to the movie that felt like if you took those elements out, you didn't the movie would have been fine without them.
Yeah.
So like in this case though, everything felt like it was supposed to be there and makes me now more excited for these characters than I had been previously. As well as excited to see what the MCU has in store. And to your point, making me more excited to see Fantastic Four, Doomsday, etc. So yeah, Thunderbolts with an asterisk. Giving a 4.5 over here on Box Office Pictures. And that is our spoiler review of Thunderbolts, and that is all the show we have for you guys this week. Emily, thank you very much for kind of just talking with us about Marvel for the last
Yeah.
2 hours. Really appreciate you coming on, and I hope you enjoyed yourself on your first time on the show.
I did. No, thank you guys for having me on. I love going through this. I mean, I took movie literacy classes back in college and everything, and I've always enjoyed them. So anytime you guys want me back on, let me know.
Oh, well, we're glad you had a good time. And as our first time guest, we always ask, what is your favorite movie?
Oh, don't do this to me.
Oh, but I did.
I really don't know if I have one. It's hard for me to choose. Um,
It could be
I
a
think
movie or a TV show. So just something that like really resonates with
I think at this point, I would want to say movie wise is probably Interstellar, and that's
you. Ooh.
also because there's a sentimentality aspect of it with my boyfriend. It was his favorite movie, and then
Mm.
we watched it together, and now it's become like this fun thing to do together every so often. So that, but also like, let's be honest, Interstellar is a great movie.
Yeah, it's
So
Christopher Nolan. And that movie gets
yeah, I
better
mean,
every time you watch it.
no, it's a good movie, and it was. I can tell you, like every single time I watch it, I get more and more shocked. So I
it
find something new every time.
it's Christopher Nolan does not miss. Yeah, you can't go wrong with Interstellar. That's a fantastic choice.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you
Thank
for
you.
coming on. And what is your like movie of choice as far as like and you said Interstellar is your favorite movie, but what are the movies that you kind of gravitate toward? Try to kind of get an idea if you were to come back, which you said you would.
Yeah.
What type
No,
of movies that you were kind of be interested in that kind of lures you back into the show that you're really excited to talk
Mm.
to be honest, I kind of watch a bunch. Like I don't have like a specific genre. I love horror. So
about? Okay.
anytime horror stuff comes out that you guys want to talk about,
Mm.
I am here. If you guys talk about like shows like The Last of Us, I love that series. That's my favorite video game. So obviously the series is great. Um, but yeah, things like that. So I love action,
Mm.
but obviously I'm also just a girl, so like I love romance as well.
Ah, okay. All right.
uh Horror is a genre that we've been kind of slowly tapping into. So maybe if we get a good horror, maybe we can get you back on for
Yeah.
Okay,
that.
listen, the new Conjuring is coming out.
Yes. Are
Just saying.
you a Conjuring fan?
Oh, I have done a deep dive into
Oh,
all of the Conjuring universe film. That's probably one of my favorite horror universes, as well as the Paranormal Activities.
Interesting. I have
Hmm.
never seen a Conjuring.
I've
Not
seen the first. I've only seen the first one.
okay. I just like recently saw the first two Insidiouses, and I was like, I don't care about. I saw two, and I'm like, I'm good. Um, but yeah, The Conjuring. That's another one. James Wan, I believe.
Hmm.
Uh,
Hmm.
yeah, she goes, yeah, that's who it is.
That's right.
Um, but yeah, maybe it's worth a binge, I guess.
Oh, so maybe it's
It
during
is.
spooky
It is.
season,
Yeah,
Matt.
There's a lot
uh,
of good horror movies coming out this year, guys.
you're not wrong. I mean, there's a lot of sequels coming out from Blumhouse too. You have the Black Phone 2, you have Megan 2.0. Yeah, there is a lot of good horror movies. Five Nights is also getting another sequel.
Heck yeah, it is. But
Yeah, so
honestly, that's probably one of my favorite movies. I'm not
it's
even
Five Nights
gonna
at
lie,
Freddy's.
because I played those games since the beginning, so like I'm deep into the lore.
Oh wow, okay.
That's funny. That's funny because when we actually reviewed it, and I had my son on because he was like a big fan of it, and like he spent so much time explaining the lore, and I was like, wow, like this shit goes deep.
Oh, I could send you like a 5-hour YouTube video.
That's
Oh my god.
crazy.
Yeah, it was funny when we had him on the show. We had talked about a particular scene. He's like, "Oh well, yeah, well, yeah, you could say that, but there's also way more involved with this." And he just went off. And
Oh
I was like,
whoa!
"Oh, excuse me, I had
I
no
had no
idea
idea
there was so
they were telling us all this in that 1 minute in that one scene.
yeah, I had no idea." Um, but yeah, we're gonna find something else. Really appreciate you coming on to the show. If
Yep,
you want more
anytime.
from us, you can always follow us on our social media channels on Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok at Box Office Bingers, our X and Letterboxd page at Box Office Binger, and our Threads and Instagram page at Box Office underscore Bingers. The fun doesn't stop here; it continues on our social media channels. So be sure to give every one of those a follow. You can see up our shorts, our movie reviews, what we are kind of doing, our new to stream. What else? Yeah, new to stream every Friday. We give you the box office numbers every Sunday.
Mhm.
Yeah, so be sure to follow all of them for just to keep up to date on what we were doing. We haven't locked down what we're doing for next week's episode, but I think we've agreed that it's going to be a foreign film. We just
Yeah.
don't know which one yet.
Yeah, once a month we hit a foreign film. And we just kind of just pick a random country and just kind of go from there. Yeah, I'm kind of excited because this usually before the summer season. There's so many bangers that come out that we don't really have
Mhm.
time to squeeze one in. So this will be the last one we do probably for a while.
Yeah, probably until the end of the summer
Yeah.
until we get to another one. Summer's very busy for us.
Yes.
With all with all the big blockbusters that are coming out. I know that we've already mentioned before. We have Lilo and Stitch. We have Mission Impossible. We have the new Karate Kid. We have Superman. We have Jurassic World. We have Fantastic Four: First Steps. So many big movies coming out this summer. We want to hit them all. We want to talk about them all. So be sure to come back to the show and listen to us talk about the biggest blockbusters that are coming out this year. Emily, thank you again for
Thank you
coming on
for
to the
coming on.
show. We really do
No,
appreciate it.
again, thank you guys for inviting me.
Come back next week for more movie fun. You're not going to regret it. And for that, I've been your host, Matt Diaz.
Ernesto Santos. See ya.